Yeah, Monday. What's up, everybody? Monday morning. Welcome to today's edition of the Daily Market Commentary. I'm your host, Chuck Fulkerson. Hope you guys are having a phenomenal day and had an even better weekend as we are doing what we do each and every day, identifying potential breakouts and reversal trades from an educational perspective, looking for opportunities in our markets. Last night, we had a live trade room. And so some of the lines you're going to see are from our live trade room last night. A couple of really nice levels from our live trade room last night, especially the S&P and the NASDAQ levels, which we'll cover here in just a couple of minutes. If you joined us last night, hopefully you were able to catch some of those moves. And I agree, Dennis, the Russell is setting up for a potential breakout. Question is which way, right? And which, because it shows up on the hourly chart in two different pictures. So we're going to take a look at both of those, or all three of those today. Real quick, if you're new to the channel, do me a favor, click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell if you get the alerts, the updates every time we do these live sessions. If you're a regular returning viewer, hit that thumbs up icon. It means a lot. I appreciate it. It would help a ton to the channel. If you are ever interested in learning more about Trader's Army and maybe even, giving us a try to see if it's worth becoming a full-fledged member, go to tradersarmy.com today. We've got a Black Friday sale, which then carried into Cyber Monday, where you can get some really, really smoking good deals on your membership with Trader's Army. We'd love to have you join us as a member, be part of the family, and a constructive part of what we think is the best trading community out there. Okay, let's go ahead and get rolling. Let me go ahead and shrink my head here so we can go ahead and get started. Now, looking here at the ES, we're down 8.5 points, but I will cover a couple of things that we looked at last night in the trade room, which were pretty decent moves. Starting first with this little 15-minute wick over wick level that we had talked about for a potential entry. And when we were looking at it last night, we were sitting right about here on this 1900 candle. And at about 9 o'clock, towards the end of our session, the market wicked up into our little 15-minute level and then immediately gave us a nice move away to the opposing area of demand. So I'm sure a couple of you were still up and able to catch that one. And we were able to kind of grab that and allow that thing to run down to the opposing area of demand. It then got to the opposing area of demand and gave us a potential entry on the 15-minute level right here as price came back up. So both supply and demand yesterday in the overnight worked out to be a pretty good trade. Now, the supply area, I'm feeling like a lot of people got that one. The demand area, probably not as many as it was your target for the short, but I don't do set it and forget it style trades. And so if you're awake, right, Jose and Nick and John and some of the other people that watch us from across the pond or on the other side of the world, maybe we're able to catch this one. I was not awake to catch this one, as that's not really my favorite thing to do, is to be up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And if I am, it's because I'm holding a crying infant. And so when I look at what's happening for today, I go to the 1 hour chart. And on the 1 hour chart, I'm looking at where's going to be my next area of opportunity for a potential reversal. My gut tells me the better chances are that we're going to come down a little bit, but maybe not a ton, right? We've slowed a bit of momentum here to the upside. If I throw my zigzag indicator on there, which I like the zigzag indicator, it helps me to just clearly see swing highs and swing lows. If I throw my zigzag indicator on there, I can see that we have indeed begun a bit of a downward move with slightly lower highs and slightly lower lows. And so there's enough there for me to say, well, I don't have a lot of great potential here, but I do have the setup for what could be a bigger breakdown going forward. So if you wanted to take a short, I think the best way to take a short, we certainly have some of these supply areas, which we've already hit and moved away from. I think the best way is going to be to take a short is to see, do we get basing inside of a level where there's any semblance of demand? And if we get basing in an area where there's demand, then there's a chance that that demand fails and we break lower. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to wrap my lines around this little wick over wick area here. I'm not overly confident in the level as a long, but what I do want to see is, do we cut right through it or do we base in front of it? And basing in front of it would actually then set up for a breakdown. Okay? That would be the difference. That's where I would look. Okay? Next would be for the John, I think that was for the short where it was the middle of the night. For the long, it was early morning for you guys. I would think it would be right around your market open time. The next would be the NASDAQ. Now, the NASDAQ level, this one actually worked out brilliantly as we had set up the hourly level of demand right here at 12,201. Price came back down into our hourly demand level and then moved away from there. And it's moved about 3 to 1 from that zone. So I'm going to remove this one here completely. So we're up about 28 points in the NASDAQ, whereas in the S&P, we're down about 9 points. The NASDAQ's up about 28. If I look at this on the bigger picture chart, the 4-hour time period, we've got an area of supply up here that we're coming into. But what do we know about this area of supply that we're coming into? Well, first of all, we based in front of the level. Second of all, we've hit it and got a very weak move away so far from that area of supply. And then third of all, that area of supply is a retest to the all-time high over here to the left. So what's our overall feeling about this supply up here? Somebody give me our overall thoughts on the strength of that supply up above us and what we think is going to happen with that area. So I'm going to remove these lines at the moment. That should give you enough of an indication. Yeah, very good, William and Mesnock, is that this is not a strong area. This is fairly weak. And it's fairly weak because if you think about true order flow, we had a pile of sell orders here. We came back and retouched that sell order, and now we're digging into it again. That's usually a setup for a pretty decent breakout. Now, the downside is that the true breakout would be above the all-time high, right? The true and best breakout is going to be above this all-time high at 124.65. I guess it would be 12,465. But we don't have 3 touches of that area, right? And so the question is it more of a zone up here that we can break out of? So what I'd really love to see is for price to get up here and stall. The more stall we have, the better for a potential upside move. And that's really where I would look for the next area of opportunity in the NASDAQ. As far as these reversal areas of demand below me, we bounced off this one here, which was a pretty good area. This is a Globex area created, on Thanksgiving evening, which there may be some trading going on there, but it's probably not a tremendous amount. So my next best level is still this one way down here. The next one that we move to is the Russell. So looking here at the rut in a 1-hour chart. And when I look at the rut from a 1-hour time period, we are on a daily chart, like Dennis pointed out earlier. In a daily chart, we're looking at a potential breakout to the upside, no doubt, especially with those long lower wicks, right? Long lower wicks indicate that there's daily buying pressure down below me. When I move to the 1-hour time period, though, I get a slightly different picture. On the 1-hour time period, the slightly different picture that I'm getting is actually showing me that I've got a really interesting area at 1828, where if we get basing in there, we could get a breakdown. So I actually see that there's the greater probability is that we will break out to the upside. No doubt about it. The greater probability is that we will break out to the upside. But is there a swing trade available, or even a shorter term swing trade or a longer term day trade available on basing right here above this area for a potential breakout? Yeah, that breakdown, excuse me. So now, what am I doing in between? As they say in the Rudolph movie, nothing, right? I'm not doing anything. I'm going to wait until we get above or below each one of those. I agree, Dennis, that seasonality does favor those small caps, But I wouldn't be surprised to see us take a little bit of an early December rest before then rallying into the end of the year. And that's all this would be a pullback in a bigger picture upward move. I would just be looking to take that as a day trade or a very short-term swing trade for price coming down out of there. And then we didn't see a whole lot in the Dow yesterday, although we did come into our confirmation long and get a little rally off of there in the Dow. And so in the Dow, I think your better probability, kind of like the S&P, is that this one could roll over a bit. Of all of them that looks the weakest for a potential rollover, the Dow actually, in my mind, looks the weakest for a potential rollover. If I throw that zigzag indicator on here, it's the one that you can see probably the most clearly. If I put the 1 hour chart back up here and I look at this is almost a candle-to-candle short opportunity. And I'd be okay if you wanted to try a candle-to-candle short if we get a good reversal candlestick, because you're at an area where it makes sense for price to turn around somewhere in here. Okay, so those are the levels that I'm looking at for today. I mean, obviously, the better trading was done last night for those of you that were with us last night in the live trade room. That was really the better setups. We don't have quite as many great setups today. And I'm not going to go through every market this morning. I don't see a whole lot in every market. So I'm gonna kind of pick and choose my battles here this morning. Next would be energies and metals. And so I don't have a whole lot to talk about in nat gas or in copper. But in gold and in crude oil, we do. So let's talk about those two. So in crude oil, we've got a little area here that we said, well, we're kind of chopping between this basing zone. And we popped just below there last night, but without giving me the quality basing that's necessary for a true breakout. We just cut below there. So that is not what I would consider a false breakout, because we didn't get basing immediately before the level as is necessary for a breakout. I still think that could be a breakout line if we get below it. If you want to be a little bit more conservative, you can move it a bit lower. But essentially, it's a breakout to this area of demand right down below here. That's where I think it makes the most sense. A breakout long still exists up above us. If I move to a 15-minute chart, I don't really have anything super clean to lean on, right? I mean, you got a little wick over wick right here that was very recently formed. But I do always get a bit of newly formed level bias, and we moved away from there and then tried to get back into it. We were unable to do so. So I'm just not going to add anything on the 15-minute chart. I'm going to wait for price to come towards our breakouts and look for serious basing before those breakouts would come into effect. In gold, we are still continuing our down move. We looked up at the most obvious area of supply right here at around 1807 by 1811. And we came down, and now we're putting in a potential breakdown setup. We're sitting here above demand, but if I look at this on the daily chart, how far can gold keep going? Well, I think that when I look at gold, we have a 15-minute demand area here. I'm just going to remove it. There's just no sense in keeping this one. And then our next level is this hourly level down in here. Let me pull that one up. Let's go back to the origin of that level. So if I look at the hourly level, what we're looking at here is this rally, base, rally, formed right at a market open. So we're formed here right at a U.S. market open time. So it's formed at a really good time of day, 1745 by 1741. Well, Chuck, we're all the way up at 1773. Great. That tells me that there's plenty of room for price to make it down to that level, provided that we get a basing and a breakout here. Now, if we don't get quality basing for that opportunity, look up above to this little wick over wick. Now, this isn't a super clean wick over wick because it's already been tested once, but it does meet the criteria for a good wick over wick reversal area, especially the time of day that it was formed and created. So look over there for a potential reversal as well. Okay. Any thoughts on gold or crude oil from this point? Like I said, there's not a whole lot to cover in these. Nat gas is just hovering between areas of demand, areas of supply. This is a happy baby. Don't mess with it. Leave it alone. Um, you might get a little breakout above 2.96 if you wanted to really be aggressive. But other than that, I don't really like doing too much with nat gas. And then copper gave us a huge run up, unable to catch that big move yesterday, which set in the new obvious area of demand right beneath here. All right, so let me share this grid. Oops. All right. Next would be ag. So looking at the agricultural markets. And as I look at the ags, we have soybeans that are sitting below a potential breakout line. Nothing really strong in between here and there. Well, Liz, I think that HZ zone is a bit obvious, but I'm okay sometimes when they're super obvious. And that one was formed at a Globex time of the day, which means that there may not be as many people looking at it, and so I'm okay with it in that case, provided that we get the good arrival to it. That's also going to be key. So, above here, right here above 1200 is obviously the breakout line in soybeans. Breakdown below this area in here, we could theoretically make it down to that level on a reversal trade. I just got to have the right level and the right setup. I just retested that entry here recently. So if you wanted to play it all the way down to there, based on some of these reversal candles, if we get a breakdown or a wick over wick, I think there's room to make it down to here. I mean, that's 20 points that you certainly have available in front of you. Corn, we have a little demand area here that price is starting to reach. We're almost to that region. Nothing really major to add on there. We didn't have anything in wheat yesterday, and we still don't have anything really in wheat. Although we did get a pretty decent sell-off in the overnight, setting us up for a potential reversal up in here. If I look at it on a 15, that becomes fairly clean on a 15-minute chart. And then bean oil, we have a potential breakdown below this 37.53. This is actually giving us really good basing right now for a potential move down from that area. Your stop would have to go above this pivot right here. Okay, let me share this one real quick. And then let's move over to currencies. Now, currencies, we looked at some of the bullishness that was available in currencies yesterday. And we haven't really seen price give us a retest back into any of those areas. For some reason, these are staved as 15 minutes, and these should be 1 hour time periods. Hold on just a moment. All right. So when I look at this 1 hour level here on the euro, that's a good level. Drop, base, very strong move away. Now, we did have a gap up out of this area from our Globex open, and then price chopped around last night before then giving us a little bit of a bump. We've now retested that area, and price could continue to move away from here. So if price continues to move away from here, and you wanted to catch and ride this train, if you will, you are getting a little move from that area. Where can price go? Well, if I look at this on a daily chart, I mean, the euro's about as high as it's been in a year, right? I got to go back further. So if I go to a weekly chart, is it possible that we could see the euro trade all the way back up here to 1.22? That's really on a weekly chart where our next true level of supply is up here at this 1.22, which would give us a really, really nice strong run higher. Essentially, I think what the currencies are all waiting on is the U.S. The U.S. having more stimulus. If the U.S. gives more stimulus, we're going to see these currencies rally. But until then, I don't see that we've got a whole lot. Now, Canadian dollar, we talked about the breakout last night. The breakout did happen, and it's been running a little bit since then. We are approaching our area of supply. If that area of supply gives us a pullback, and we pull back into this region here, that's a pretty clean little region for a pullback in the Canadian dollar. Now, tempted to look at this area in here on the pullback because it was the prior area of resistance, but I think the origin of the move is probably a little bit more conservative of an entry on that Canadian dollar trade. Looking at the ZN, our 10-year note, we had talked yesterday about a potential breakdown below this 137 if we get basing here for price to move down from that level. Our rollover gap fill, price did hit the rollover gap and is now starting to kind of come down from that rollover gap. Let's see if we get the basing in there for price to move lower. And then we'll share this one. And then last, but certainly not least, in our currency world, we have the New Zealand dollar, the Great British pound, the Japanese yen, and the Aussie. All of them with an interesting little look, starting with the New Zealand dollar. And the New Zealand dollar on our 4-hour chart is continuing its upward trend. We had seen a slowing of momentum, but it didn't really pan out or really give us anything on that slowing of momentum. And so we continue to look long. And by the way, for those of you that are more swing trader style and you've been in this trade since down here, congratulations, right? You make a lot more money when you're able to stay in these trades a bit longer in time period. And so just keep that in mind as well. So potential breakout above this region here. We got a couple of touches or at least close to it where we could break out above there. If not, a pullback into this 69.79 I think makes the most sense. Great British pound. We are sitting in between two very nice breakout areas. It reminds me a lot of what we looked at the Russell earlier today. I think the better probability is that we continue to break out to the upside overall, but on a smaller time period, we are hovering between that range. And when we're in between that range, I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to allow that range to continue to develop and look for the breakout. Japanese yen. The Japanese yen has really opened up in the last few days with a lot more, expanded range candles after some narrow range candles on that move up. Now that tells me that I don't want to really mess with it for a little bit. I want to stay away and give myself a little bit of breathing room until we get some sort of a basing or clear trend directional area. I mean, you do have some little bit of a rising trend line here that we may bounce off of, but on the 4-hour, I see big swings over here, that show up actually probably better on the daily. That price pattern that we're seeing, that little bit of a pinching we're seeing here, could break one way or the other, and I think it makes sense just to hold off. And then in the Australian dollar, we did have a little bounce last night off of our 15-minute area of demand. Price came into the level. We got a decent little move away before then just completely stalling. And now we're back into the level. Well, the deeper we trade into that level, the weaker that level becomes for the next move. So if you're able to catch that one, that actually gave you a nice little reward to risk. Oops, that's the wrong drawing tool. Gave you a nice little reward to risk for for kind of a one-day setup or a swing trade, very small trade, swing trade, intraday trade. Now I would be looking for basing in front of this level for price to continue to come down. We could theoretically reverse at one of these areas up here, but they're super small, and you're looking at mere ticks, right, in size. And I think that might be a little bit even. I think that's a little too small. All right, so let me share this grid as well. Now, one of the things that I would also say, although I don't cover in the daily market commentary, we don't cover individual stock positions very often. And I'm thinking about figuring out a way to do that and to do a little bit more individual stock analysis throughout the day. But we do a lot more of that in the live trade rooms. I think you've actually got a lot of good individual stocks and options trades that are setting up for the next couple of weeks. And so those are what I'm going to really focus on, probably more into the end of the year. More than individual futures trades, I'm going to look for equity markets that make the most sense, probably more than I usually do. So I'm going to see a little shift heading into the end of the year away from some of my futures trading and more towards some of my individual equities trading, specifically regarding options, because I think that's where we're going to see the best bang for our buck in individual named securities, right? I mean, you think of companies that have had a big run this year, like Home Depot, right? Home Depot's run strong. Well, now we're kind of seeing a little bit of sideways chop. What's it going to do? I mean, everybody's favorite, right? The darling that is Tesla. What's the next run for Tesla? Well, where's our pullback for Tesla going to come back and allow us to get in? Apple. Are we going to see anything happening with Apple coming into the rest of the year? So a lot of big name stocks that I think are worth continuing keeping a good eye on, especially from an options perspective. Once again, I mentioned it a little bit earlier. If you don't trade options, why? You're missing out. I mean, I know we don't cover those here in the DMC, but a lot of a lot of people say, well, I don't want to trade options until I'm good at futures. I don't want to trade options until I'm good at futures. I don't want to trade options until I'm good at forex. And you get this laser focus. And what you don't realize is that's not the way you learn anything in life. The way you learn things in life is that by expanding your horizons, right? By expanding your horizons and getting better at other things, it makes you better at the one you've already started. It may sound stupid, but my son is a baseball player, loves playing baseball. He's a good baseball player. He's a better pitcher right now, better baseball player, because he's taking fencing lessons. What does one have to do with the other? Well, the fencing lessons are helping him with his coordination. They're helping him with how he stands. They're helping him with his lunges. It's amazing how I see those two come together. And he's not gonna start fencing until he masters baseball. You can't do that, right? One makes you better at the other. The same thing with trading options. When you start trading options, it's going to make you better at your other asset classes. And I want you to think about that heading into the end of the year. So once again, if you're interested in learning more about it, go to the website. We've got click on this little learn more for Black Friday specials. We got some really, really cool things going on. We're excited about. I'm looking forward to some of the new members that have come on board in the last couple of days. But Cyber Monday, baby, Cyber Monday. So come join us. Look forward to having you there. Until tomorrow, everybody, I hope you guys have a phenomenal day. I appreciate you all so very much. If you have any questions, please let me know. But I will talk to you soon. See ya.